If you're a subscriber of this channel, you're probably here because of learning Golang online, and most people who learn coding online on their own usually have some personal project as well. So today we're gonna try some new video format about how you can play with your competition. In this video, we will see the example of Steam, who is currently in a big brains battle with Microsoft over market share of gaming, which is funny because Gabe Newell started his work in Microsoft. Now you might say that Microsoft is not a serious competitor to Steam when it comes to selling video games on personal computers. And even if that might be true for individual games, you might want to look at their subscription-based service, Game Pass, that has generated over 23 million users only since its launch on 2017. And since Game Pass has hundreds of games available, it is eating into Steam's market share for those games, and its catalog is only growing over time. But things are not all shiny for Microsoft either though. Over the past few years, Microsoft slowly but steadily has been losing its market share to other operating systems like macOS, Chrome OS, and more importantly, Linux-based OS, which is important for us. Most of the programmers and researchers have to install Linux-based OS for their workstations, at least alongside Windows, because a lot of packages either work better with Linux or work only in Linux, and or you want to have the same environment that you deploy your programs on, and Linux servers are much easier to work with. Also, over the past few years, Linux-based flavors have been getting more and more user-friendly with likes of Ubuntu. So people who don't like Microsoft's constant messaging about Edge and its on-time forced updates have another platform they can try out. But the main problem is usually with them not being able to use all of the programs they had access to on Microsoft's Windows because they don't have native support on Linux. And here is when Wine steps in. Wine, which stands for Wine is not an emulator because it does not emulate the whole Windows environment, is a tool that can be used to run Windows programs on Linux. And since it's not an emulator, it actually replaces the system calls a program makes to the Windows operating system to its equivalents and Unix-based system calls. And this is great, but needs a lot of setting up and a lot of configuration is needed for most programs. This is where Steam stepped in for video games. Xbox Game Pass came out on June 1st, 2017, and around 1 year after that, on August 21st, 2018, after Valve partnering with Codeweavers, a company specializing in proprietary versions of Wine, published Proton. This gave the people who wanted to play Valve's huge library of video games a really good support out of the box for a ton of video games. They also published something called ProtonDB, which is a database stating how much each game is supported, and you can see how everyone is changing Proton's configurations to be able to play games on Linux. Now, this isn't the only thing Valve did though. Proton gave the users the option to use the existing libraries, but Valve's next big step was to force the developers to have better Proton support for their games in the future out of the box. Valve decided to make a new gaming device that would work like Nintendo Switch, but instead of being stuck only with Nintendo games, you could play your games from Steam, which is pretty huge. And the OS they used is Linux-based, and they use Proton for this device, meaning that if you are a new developer and you want to tap into the Steam Deck's market share, you better add support for Proton, and better yet, natively support Linux-based systems to make that money, because your level of support will be shown to the Steam Deck's users. With all these changes, Steam is probably hoping to help along people's move towards outside Windows, where Microsoft is the owner and can probably do some anti-competitive practices in order to sell more Game Passes towards Linux-based operating systems, especially with the newer version of Windows, and given that the recent adaptation of Windows 11 has been everything but smooth, this might actually be a great time for Steam to do this. I think as a conclusion, if you're trying to compete with someone in the same field as you should always at least have the support for the same things the users are currently using, so they will not lose any products or features when moving to your platform. And your next step should be to persuade the people who make the market to support you natively. And because of this, as time passes by, you have less work to do for supporting the old environment. Only time will tell if Steam will win this competition against Microsoft's game as a subscription-based business plan. Because even though I used many sources, there is a lot of speculation involved. And you may already know the answer if you are watching this video in the future. And if you do, why not share what you think in the comments down below. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe for more videos like this. Thanks.